We enter the top 20 in our Kiwi pop culture countdown with Bungee Madness, Telefon's Tummies, the most famous New Zealander in Japan, and the Great New Zealand OE. Oh dear.
Hello, I'm Rhys Darby.
Extreme!
Are you into adventure tourism? I'm not. It's too
Extreme!
for me. I like sitting around pubs in the sun, drinking, watching people in boats go by. Not being on a boat with a big jet engine watching out for rocks. It's not really my thing. I'd rather just, you know, go to a museum or an art gallery, not jump off bridges.
Somehow this has become part of the New Zealand experience for thousands. But this great Kiwi invention actually had its roots in these roots. Well, vines.
It was essentially a rite of passage where they'd jump off these wooden structures attached only to a liana vine. And then if you survived, well, basically you were a man. A few of them didn't.
The brave young men of Pentecost Island may have invented the sport, but their system was far from perfect. That's where an enterprising mullet-sporting Kiwi came in.
You've got to go past your normal limit.
AJ Hackett perfected the much safer bungee cord, but his real achievement was convincing people to pay handsomely for a near-death experience.
I think for a lot of people, bungee jumping was the closest they'd ever get to death. And after they do it, they'd want to head back into town, they'd want to get in the pub, they'd want to drink heavily and talk about it. The marketing machine was built for you purely because of the experience.
Been on 2 bungee jumps in the same day as well. The only time that you can say, yes, I wet my pants when you're over the age of 4 and get away with it, because bungee jumping is terrifying.
I don't know why it doesn't appeal to me. Everyone that's done it says, oh, it's a rush. But I just can think of better things to spend that amount of money on, like half an ounce.
What was once a noble rite of passage has now become a frivolous cliche of youthful excess and gratuitous record breaking.
He'll be continuously throwing himself off the Auckland Harbour Bridge.
Bungee jump off Auckland's Sky Tower.
A mass jump from their newest site.
The world's highest accelerator descent.
I think bungee jumping really put New Zealand on the map as an adventure destination. The global coverage that New Zealand got as a result of AJ Hackett has a lot to do with where we're sat today as a tourism destination.
Just wanna do something special for all the ladies in the world.
They are quite simply the biggest New Zealand comedy act ever.
It's very exciting to be here in America. What a buzz.
The fact they're also musicians makes the Flight of the Conchords our biggest international act since Crowded House.
It's really great to be proud of something that isn't sports.
The biggest breakthrough of the Conchords is that they're playing New Zealanders in America, on American television.
I mean, the idea of a pair of naive idiots from New Zealand, it's so simple, it's genius.
The genius of the Conchords is that, you know, those guys are Kiwis in the Big Apple and they're being themselves, and Americans are lapping them up.
Where are you from?
New Zealand.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Why don't you get lost? I don't serve your kind here.
Our characters, Brett and Jermaine, are loosely based on ourselves.
You better watch out, you don't really know who you're dealing with.
But mine's a little bit ruder than I am, and Brett's
mine's slightly more naive.
It's stupider than Brett really is.
I'm not actually that stupid.
What's that?
That's the bird. Well, that bird doesn't have any wings. It's only got one leg.
The long road to New York went via Scotland and the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
We were in Edinburgh and they didn't have an audience because we went over at the same time as they did. They were here. They said, oh, will you come to our show? Because they had no one.
But on their third visit in 2003, the duo was nominated for a Perrier Award, and soon HBO came calling.
This is a dream, Brett. It's all part of your freaky dream.
Oh, right.
Much was made of the fact that New Zealand TV had previously rejected the Conchords.
I can sort of see why it was turned down here, and it might have done them a favour, because I think it could have been, it's so, you know, off the wall and quirky that it could have been shown here and people not like it. You know, we are much more confident about a show that's been done overseas and people like it overseas. It's the old colonial cringe, really.
Outside television, the Conchords conquered with their song, winning at the New Zealand Music Awards.
Breakthrough Artist of the Year, Flight of the Conchords.
Wow. Oh, wow. Jermaine.
What's that, Brett?
Jermaine, we've won the Breakthrough Artist of the Year award.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of course, they'd already won a Grammy, so it was hardly worth getting out of bed for.
That's cool. Keep that there. Night, Jermaine.
Good night.
Meanwhile, there was another star in the making.
New Zealand Consulate, Murray Hewitt speaking.
The only stipulation was that he was to be keen but naive at the same time.
Now, this seems like a really, really good deal.
It does seem a little too good to be true.
That's why we should go for it.
And the rest, I guess, sort of came from me being quite keen and naive.
This is good. Listen to the crowd.
You know, before the Conchords, I put together some pilots and tried to make a show here, but they didn't want me. I wasn't good enough for them. So that's why I went to America, and, you know, and they accepted me.
America was just the beginning, and Darby has now realised his dream of making a New Zealand show too, but only this one.
Hang on a second. Yeah. Hi, Jermaine. Sorry, yeah, number 24. I know. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm only presenting it. Yeah. All right, no, it's too late. I think it's gone to air. Well, look, you're the top 10 in my books, mate. OK. And now the OE. We invented it.
Every year, thousands of Kiwis pack their bags and literally fly the coop.
You only truly understand your sense of patriotism and stuff when you're away from the country and you're with a bunch of people who are away from the country.
It seems the only way to really connect with New Zealand is to escape it.
When you're away from home, what it does is it's like a gathering. It brings unity, all the people from around, far and away from home, together as one.
Yep, these people are on their OE. We call it overseas experience, even though the experience is often remarkably similar to life in New Zealand.
Doing a bit of drinking, eating mussels and oysters, and listening to the music.
In fact, the only thing more Kiwi than New Zealand is London on Waitangi Day. This orgy of New Zealandness has become the annual zenith of the great Kiwi OE. It's like Otago, Canterbury and Massey University orientation, all rolled into one. Makes you feel proud, doesn't it? Of course, it wasn't always about getting trolleyed.
I think it's part of the necessary sort of testing of our boundaries as people, is to go and see what is the rest of the world like and how does it stack up compared to New Zealand. So this is why we travel so much.
Because Kiwis only really respect the opinions of someone from overseas, the only people who really get any respect in New Zealand are people who've been overseas and come back from their OE.
You sleep under a bridge in like, you know, Yorkshire and you're a legend. You sleep under a bridge in Taranaki and you're a bum.
The classic OE takes in Europe in a kind of tiki tour.
Nobody organises it, but everybody seems to follow the same path and then meet up in quite unlikely or, you know, places you might not have even heard of. You suddenly arrive and there's 1,000 Kiwis partying there. It seems like the OE is less about overseas experience and it's about having one big final party before they come home and settle down. And the fact that it's happening on the other side of the world means that they can do things that they would never do at home in case they're, you know, they might run into their auntie.
I think all New Zealanders should get over here sometime and experience it, travel and do it.
Do you think you're better people for doing this?
Yes, definitely.
I remember my first big OE. So nervous, but also excited to be away from Mum, you know, and nervous being away from Mum.
Coming up, when is Greek cheese not fitter? I'm Xena. When it's Xena and Hercules.
Other men couldn't love you the way I do.
And hyperventilating into history.
Overseas films have been made in New Zealand before. There's the 1969 Japanese film, Young Guy on Mount Cook. Just one example there. Oh, another one. Ron Howard's dwarf epic, Willow. Two examples there. But it wasn't until the 90s that we got two shows that really made good use of our scenery.
In the mid-90s, a little bit of ancient Greece came to New Zealand. The show was a big American production called
Hercules. It just sounded naff. I got the script, and honestly, it was just it was terrible.
Bought yourself a whole heap of trouble.
It turned out to be an all-cheese diet.
No trouble at all.
especially for one of New Zealand's best-known Shakespearean actors.
You got to remember, I was, 37 and Shakespearean and everything. So I turned up, I thought I was doing it like John Wayne, kind of, Hey, Hercules must have been some kind of monster. And I don't know, I just really kind of poured it on. Other men couldn't love you the way I do. And I got the part.
The Swords and Sandals saga ran for 6 leather-clad seasons.
I thought it was over, but then suddenly they want 13 episodes, then they want 22 episodes, then they want a lot of episodes. And we made 100 and... I can't remember. I can't believe this.
The marathon run saw the show's characters experience every imaginable storyline.
And I was in the first one, I got killed, and then rewritten and brought back to life, which is the joke, really, because it's a standing joke, because it happened in the series about 4 times to me. And then there was an episode where he turned into a chicken. It was called a pig, rather. It was called Porcules.
I promised I wouldn't let anything happen to you, and
you were right.
I mean, really out there stuff.
Thank the gods you're okay.
Hercules spawned a feminine spin-off which was destined to make a star of a strapping but relatively unknown Kiwi actress.
I'm Xena.
hello, Xena.
Is everyone you know so famous?
Together, Hercules and Xena created a local television cottage industry virtually overnight.
At its height, when Hercules and Xena were running, there were 5 warehouses around Auckland, all operating full-time as studios.
Scores of New Zealand actors appeared as guest stars. There was Guy from Shortland Street, and Lionel from Shortland Street, Craig from Shortland Street, and Minnie from Shortland Street, and Alison from Shortland Street.
It's your mother.
Well, I have, on many a cold early morning, had to don a small amount of leather to cover the little bits in the nether regions and bounced around a field.
For Kiwi actors, it was a taste of American fandom and a glimpse into the dark, sometimes frightening recesses of the pop culture universe.
I have been introduced to a whole world through it. The whole Xena conventions, going to America and becoming part of the whole kind of fan circuit. Very interesting.
3,000 people in San Francisco. Whoa. I walked in, it was like, I mean, it was, just like that.
And they're fanatics about the show.
It does get really intense when people are standing in front of you dressed as your character.
Especially the ones that have got a picture of your character tattooed on their back.
With their kids dressed as your character.
The show employed more than 1,000 local actors and thousands more extras, but $150 million later, the curtain came down.
I remember at this party, this writer said, when they get you to play your evil twin, start looking for work. And sure enough.
For the longest time, we tried to pretend it didn't exist.
Well, New Zealand women were the first in the world to get the vote. Do you think they've become a little bit complacent now?
Our newsreaders pretended they didn't have one.
But the exams actually start tomorrow.
We approached it like a crooked tooth, believing it was something that could be fixed.
Good evening. An Auckland man is in prison tonight after being charged with the murder of...
His was fixed. But then we realised it didn't need fixing at all. And finally we accepted the New Zealand accent.
Your Majesty, my name is Lynn, and I come from a little place called Tawa. The accent was indistinguishable from the whole persona. It was the voice of the suburbs, basically, that hadn't been heard before. It'd be really neat if you could come and visit us in Tawa sometime.
Comic characters on TV were the first and most important ambassadors for the New Zealand accent.
Trev, I want you to go and inseminate the herd.
I think we've come a long way since that freak out of first putting it on screen in the 70s.
My first memory of hearing the New Zealand accent on television was Karen Hay on Radio with Pictures.
And we don't just play music on Radio with Pictures, there's a fair bit of purposeful chat goes on around here as well. Check this lot out.
I wanted to sound like her for years. I practiced sounding like her. And then when I finally got to be on TV myself, I heard myself back and I sounded terrible.
Nowadays, our leading pop culture ambassadors are defiantly taking our accent to the world.
Brett?
Yeah, Brett.
Brett?
Brett.
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 Yeah.
It doesn't hold you back anymore. There was a time when every Kiwi actor had to learn American accents because there's no way you could audition in your own, and people like the Concords have changed that.
I love your accent.
I mean, I love the New Zealand accent. It's unique in the universe.
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.
It's so unique, even YouTube hits are taking the piss out of it.
Do you happen to have a bucket or a who's brew?
I love the New Zealand accent. I think it's one of the most hilarious in the world, and I'm really happy to see more Kiwis are sort of owning it.
At number 20, someone who has been forced to hide their New Zealand accent, except perhaps in her most famous moment.
The Oscar goes to Anna Paquin, the piano.
It's possibly the only time anyone has ever accepted an Oscar with an asthma attack.
I'd like to thank the Academy for the honour of letting me be here today.
She just, that whole, I was just like, oh.
She was barely old enough to spell Oscar, but already Anna Paquin had achieved more at 12 years old than most of us could in a lifetime.
How does it feel to be here at the Academy Awards? It's really great.
The Best Actress gong was for her portrayal of Flora in Jane Campion's The Piano.
When I saw Anna, she just looked exactly right for the part. I phoned up Jane and said, I think we've got her.
She says she'd rather be boiled alive by natives than get back in your stinking tub.
I first of all auditioned her and I made her do the same piece 23 times. And she was only 9.
Bloody bugger her!
And she didn't sort of throw a tanty or go, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So, I mean, you know already that she's determined.
Determined enough to avoid letting her career-defining award define her career.
It all plays out the way she planned it.
Anna finished high school and college before returning to Tinseltown and a carefully managed career.
Anna must have one of the best agents in the biz over there. She's all over the place, man. She's in a lot of films.
I think the most important thing is she's remained interesting. She hasn't just gone the way of a commercial actress in America. She's played a lot of different interesting roles.
There were indie hits like The Squid and the Whale.
I wondered for a long time what it would be like to fuck you.
Blockbusters too, like X-Men.
Somebody help me!
The 25th Hour with Edward Norton.
You again?
And all more than 20 films in 16 years.
I think she's our most successful export, completely.
Anna Paquin could well be New Zealand's most famous actor. She's worked with Morgan Freeman, Steven Spielberg, Spike Lee, Meg Ryan, Edward Norton, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, Kevin Spacey, as well as 2 Seans, a Connery and a pen. A pen. Imagine acting with a pen. Please, come back to me! Don't leave me! No, I'm going out with someone else. His name's Parker. Parker.
Coming up, how a giant marsupial nearly changed the face of Waimate. And farming TV, the land of milk and funny.
Is it a difficult instrument to play, the fence?
Oh, yes, it's pretty hard.
8:30 on C4.
Small towns have it rough. New roads are built to bypass them. The young people leave. It's up to the parents to fight back. They hold a town meeting. Someone yells out, hey, what about a giant statue of a pie? That ought to keep the kids happy and bring the tourists in. Yeah, but we need a slogan, mate. Small town, big pie? Oh, now you're onto it. Isn't he good? Bloody Jason, he's clever, isn't he? Who's going to build that giant pie? I'll do it, fuck it.
Tapuki has its kiwi fruit. Rakaya has its salmon. Not taking any chances, Gore has both a salmon and a sheep. It's a national obsession.
I don't know what it is with small towns, but they like to make big gestures and big claims.
Even towns that already have actual landmarks put up their own.
So I'm from Taranaki, I'm from a little town called Hawera, and we tried to get a big thing in our town, you know, so that people would come and visit Hawera. And so they made a big cow, except they didn't have a lot of money, so the cow is only 1.5 times the size of a regular cow.
Te Kuiti's giant sheep shearer at least has size going for it.
I suppose our rates will go up. I suppose that'll be the next thing.
They've all come here today to see the statue, yes.
Of course, you'll recognise this as our most famous small-town landmark.
Some days you can, like the busloads, hop out and take the photo.
The temptation is to build some massive thing to make them all go, whoa.
And speaking of woo, wallaby-loving Waimati dreamed of a giant marsupial.
This wallaby, erected just off the main street in Waimati, will be something that you can climb up inside, look out the viewing pouch, the Joey pouch, as a platform.
It'd be nice to have a big wallaby and have a tail like a water slide that come down and they went down the water slide and into the swimming pool. That would be neat.
Sadly, the giant wallaby never came to be. It's a pity, because the sillier your giant animal, the better. Just ask T-Row.
They take your eye as you come into town, and I don't think they're well done.
It was our best excuse for losing the World Cup ever. The All Blacks had been poisoned.
For the All Blacks, heartache!
One of the great All Black teams, we had to find some reason that we lost.
The reason is now part of New Zealand folklore.
The All Blacks were struck by food poisoning just before the big match.
But it wasn't just food poisoning, it was poisoned food.
Oh yeah, we were definitely poisoned.
I mean, this is not some made-up story.
Legend has it, someone spiked the All Blacks food at the team's hotel on the eve of the '95 World Cup final.
During the whole 6-week World Cup tour, 5 people had been crook. And then 48 hours before the World Cup final, 26 of the 35 go down.
Someone, goes into the kitchen and puts something inside the big pots.
It all centres on the drinks that you had on the Thursday.
I suspect that somebody had injected the fruit.
The South Africans called it a coincidence, but this was fishier than a Zimbabwean election.
The only guys who didn't get it were the guys who climbed out the window and shot off to McDonald's for the evening, because that was banned. You weren't allowed to do that.
The whole thing reeked of a conspiracy, but who was behind it?
You now believe you know the identity of someone that was responsible for that. One person who you believe was paid to contaminate something that you were taking at that meal.
Yes.
Investigators turned up the name Susie, a shadowy figure, perhaps doing the bidding of dodgy bookies wanting to ensure a New Zealand loss.
Susie the tea lady. There was no Susie the tea lady. They all went to a seafood restaurant. That's the great secret of that. There was no tea lady.
The sad thing is that, nobody believes it now because you lost.
Yeah, man. It's the only way you're going to beat the All Blacks is trying to come sneaky like that, so, they know that. Because we're the best.
Oh well, 2011? I tell you what we're good at. Farming. And also filming farming and putting it on TV. Maybe we should have a World Cup about farming. Or about filming farming, putting it on TV. We'd win 2 trophies there.
It had an unforgettable theme tune. The clarion call of the country gently rolling into our living rooms every Saturday.
Country calendar. Oh, just the theme music would be the same effect as Coronation Street. Instant bedtime.
Country calendar for me was bedtime.
Country Calendar is one of the most fascinating TV shows I have ever had the privilege to watch.
Country Calendar took the pulse of the nation from its very heartland. And even if most of us already lived in cities, this was like looking into the soul of New Zealand.
Tim is 27, has a degree in agriculture from Lincoln College, is a keen dog trialist, and plays squash in the little spare time he has available.
The television could be as dry as the parched fields upon which it was made.
Here in Canterbury, in perhaps 20 years' time, we'll be growing a wide range of processed vegetable crops, tomatoes, peas, beans, who knows.
But sometimes there was high art with the high country.
The winter snows and summer sun look on a small backcountry run, where man is dwarfed by ridges high and fog-bound tops that pierce the sky.
The grand narrative was one of human struggle in a sometimes unforgiving land.
We come in 66 when prices were real good, and the following year everything turned to half. 67.
So what did you do when everything dropped?
Just exist.
It's so unpretentious and gritty. It's about working on the land and doing great things for the land. Can I get the swelling orchestral music now? Thanks.
There was humour too, as gentle as a summer breeze.
Is it a difficult instrument to play, the fez?
Oh, yes, it's pretty hard.
The brilliance with Country Calendar came, and everybody knows this, is when they got bored with telling actual rural stories and started telling lies.
What's your stock management procedure? So we breed them up to about 7 days on the
mother, and that's 19 mice per sheep, and we reckon about 25 days is about the right fattening period. Bring the sheep in after that time.
That was the start of really good New Zealand television comedy making and a brilliant bit of New Zealand lie telling.
But sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. A dog show was one of our most loved programs, an oddly transfixing contest between dogs and sheep.
Can you call it? Yes, you can. Now, round this far right. Sit down.
I only liked the dog show. You see this guy just stand there and go...
That'll do, Voss. Voss.
Fred! Bluey! Oh, great drama. That was once primetime television. Sadly, those days are gone, but back in the day, it was a window on all that is great about New Zealand.
TVNZ tried to cash in on a dog show spin-off, but only one episode of The Human Show was ever filmed. Get in there, Michael. Get in there. Get in there, Michael. Get in there. Buy her a drink. Buy her a drink. Get her phone number. Get out. Get out, Michael. Good boy. Sit down. Oh, fake number. Unlucky, Michael.
Coming up, the most famous dog with no name in the world.
Here you go. Sleep tight, little fella.
And thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much.
From 7 on 3.
The 1970s were a special time in New Zealand, chiefly because we were at least 15 years behind the rest of the world, so it was actually the 1960s. But in 1974, New Zealand had to pull its bloody socks up because we were hosting the Commonwealth Games.
The clearest memory that I have of that is day one. Yeah, that was fantastic.
The opening ceremony was a masterpiece of less is more pageantry.
Now it gives me the very greatest pleasure to declare the 10th British Commonwealth Games open.
And for the very first time, it was all happening in colour. Glorious colour.
The girls are wearing a one-piece frock of red, white and blue diagonal stripes.
All of a sudden, people had a reason to go out and get a colour TV, and a lot of households did.
When it came to the actual contest, it helped that we had actual winners, and not just in the crap sports.
You had John Walker versus Filbert Bay. You had this young girl, Rebecca Perrott, in the pool winning medals. Richard Taylor winning the 10,000 metres. It was extraordinary because it was a battle to the end, and then he did that great big dive back onto his back.
The games seemed to have everything. All they needed was a soundtrack.
Can anybody remember what the theme tune was? Join Together.
Join Together was the anthem of the games, and the nation dutifully sung along like patriotic communists.
It didn't quite make number one. Let's join together in the spirit of the Lord above. I mean, you wouldn't get that outside the Parachute Festival now, but it kind of passed without comment then, and people did genuinely sing it.
That was the first album I ever bought. 1974, I was 11 years old, and I bought that album, and it was fantastic.
I was in my mummy's tummy during those games. Apparently I kicked when Dick Turpin won the 10,000 metres. The Commonwealth Games were held again in New Zealand in 1990, this time in Auckland, and future drug importer Simon Poleman won bronze in the pole vault.
30 years ago, there was one TV event that unified the country like no other, and it wasn't a test match. It was telethon.
It was amazing how the rest of New Zealand just embraced telethon.
Telethon is the biggest, most watched TV show in New Zealand. It was an institution.
Kids would have pyjama parties and everybody would gather around the box.
The chips, the duvet, chocolate milk, up all night.
The bit that you stayed up for in the middle of the night is a bunch of singing tummies. That's the funniest thing ever.
For the kids staying up at home, telethon opened up a nocturnal netherland of international stars, glittering performers and ordinary Kiwis in a mad carnival of lo-fi live TV.
Telethon was the biggest blast. It was a 24-hour roller coaster of craziness.
On TV, they somehow transformed that
deathly pace and shonky production values into something magical.
It was a rare glimpse into the inner workings of the TV machine.
I think back then, television was a bit mysterious still. People were fascinated by it, and they would love to come into the studio and see how things worked and take part in all the telethon craziness.
And you could get celebrities to do just about anything for money.
An actor from The Young Doctors, I think, gorgeous girl, and kept getting people ringing up. They'd pay $5 if we kissed, which was very enjoyable. And I remember my first wife rang up and said, "I'll give you $20 if you stop kissing that girl."
Sometimes this public celebrity matchmaking actually worked.
I went on the infamous one where Lisa Gibbons fell in love with Christopher What's-His-Face from Coronation Street or EastEnders, one of those things. He was doing flick-flicks and handstands and jumps and that sort of thing, and was there the entire time while this hideous televised romance occurred.
But like all things in TV, telethon was smoke and mirrors, even without the smoke and mirrors.
25 years distance now, so I can actually tell you some of the challenges we actually created ourselves in order to get some nice television activity.
How much? $20. $20. Oh, please. The main performer in telethon was not any of the people. It was the scoreboards being continually held up saying how much money had been raised.
Go to the board!
But was it accurate?
We played with the score. We really did. We played with the money. What we did, most people stayed up all night to watch the program, but we played in quite a lot of money through the night that we knew we were getting the following day. And so that when those people who did go to sleep and wake up the following morning, they were surprised by the progress that we'd made through the night.
But the final total was always accurate. There were 8 telethons over 15 years. The largest sum raised was over $6 million in 1985.
People talk about those years as a golden age of light entertainment in New Zealand. Yeah, that's partly true, but it conceals a bigger truth, as that was the golden age of sincerity in television. People really meant it. People really cared.
When I was a kid, I not only made up funny songs, but I used to read the paper, not for the articles, but for the cartoon strips. You know, Peanuts, Classic, Garfield, Doomsbury, no idea what that was about. And then, of course, there's that New Zealand strip.
It's practically the only Kiwi cartoon most New Zealanders know. The simple story of a man and his dog, Footrot Flats. Inspired by life on a New Zealand farm, Footrot Flats was the creation of cartoonist Murray Ball.
Get away up.
Well, I've been working in Britain for 5 years. When I came back, I had a dog, and it sort of fell naturally into place. The farmer and the dog was iconic characters in the New Zealand landscape, so it just came to mind.
I love the dog, I love Border Collies, and it was just a wonderful cartoon.
People tended to like it, God knows why.
Everybody loved Footrot Flats because it had a rural setting, and New Zealand still fondly imagined it was a rural country, even though the statistics indicate that most people lived in cities. But in our hearts, we were a farming country.
The strip ran for nearly 20 years, went international and produced 27 books. In 1987, Footrot Flats finally hit the silver screen. But what would the characters sound like?
Don't panic, dog. So you're drowning in a sheep. Could be worse.
The dog's voice was an awful bother because their idea of what the dog sounded like was not my idea of what the dog sounded like.
What a pity. It was such a promising puppy.
The voice of Wal was an easier choice.
Socks. I had socks here last week, 2 of them from memory.
Actually, in an animation, the voice and the tone, they're terribly important.
He was a rural voice. He was the only rural voice I knew that also had acting ability. So he could actually put over the situations, and he brought actually a lot to the character.
Turning the strip into a movie was a painful process for Ball, who struggled with the collaborative nature of filmmaking.
It was a very frustrating time for both them and me. Actually, it was probably the most tormented time of the whole history of Footrot Flats.
There you go. Sleep tight, little fella.
I was happy with the film on the whole, but there were many, many aspects of it that I wasn't happy with.
But there was one part of the film that everyone seemed happy with.
The music was brilliant. Dave Dobbin did a great job there.
Somebody else had been asked to do the movie music and they turned it down.
think it might have been Tim Finn. So I kind of got it second hand.
This is You Wanna Be in Love.
A winning love is hard enough to find, and when you got it, never leave it behind. Hold on and give it all you have. When it
Most of the songs came up from the script. I didn't have any footage at all for most of the time I worked on that movie.
She's a slice of heaven.
Slice of Heaven was one of the first ones to come up. When we got to record the song, I sat down with John Barnett, who was the producer of the movie, and said to him, I got a winner. This song's a killer.
Slice of Heaven hit #1, and Foot Rot Flats the movie was the highest-grossing film of 1987. The final frame of the cartoon was published in 1994, a simple scene that closed the book on a New Zealand institution.
I miss Foot Rot Flats. It was good to me, and I enjoyed doing it. But I felt it had been going long enough. I wanted to stop while people still wanted to see it.
Such a poignant ending. I've decided to end this segment in the same way. We've got some sad music, Littlest Hobo, or The Incredible Hulk, something piano-based. Thanks. Cry if you're feeling it.
Coming up, how to literally sell your soul in New Zealand. It's legal, and the most famous New Zealander in Japan.
I could eat you. Great.
When the internet first started, it wasn't that great. Mainly just arguments about Dungeons and Dragons. You'd get one email a year from your mate. Where are you? I'm here in the library with you. Oh, there you are. I'm coming over. Send. But now look at it, it's amazing. There's over 50 websites to choose from, lots of coloured pictures, and you can buy all sorts of stuff online from your lounge. Stuff you need, like the original Action Man or old women's clothing, so you can dress up like an old woman. What? What's wrong with that?
You can buy anything on Trade Me these days. Miraculous food, motorised road-going couches, even body parts.
I've had the leg for 42 years. I mean, if I get good money for it, why not?
Actually, they'd put a stop to that.
We don't allow body parts.
People say that I'm a bit strange.
You can put up anything. It's just a question of how long it'll stay up there before we take it down.
It's nice. One person's garbage is another person's treasure.
Trade Me is natural recycling.
A lot of other people's garbage is my wife's treasure.
Trade Me has become a national forum that democratically values almost anything that can be sold, even objects that would have been worthless in a pre-Trade Me world. There was All Black captain Tana Umanga's handbag, of course.
It became famous when Tana Umanga grabbed it from a startled young woman and belted Hurricane teammate Chris Marsoe with it in a Christchurch pub last weekend.
This streaker's bikini top fetched a few grand just because it had been on TV. This pregnant woman even auctioned off her swollen belly as advertising space.
Her bump drew a successful bid of $255 on Trade Me.
We really can't second guess what somebody's motivation is or become moral agents around it.
Is anything sacred?
Actually, no. You can even sell your soul on Trade Me. One guy did.
So in the case of the soul, they sold a certificate. We wouldn't allow them to sell an amorphous soul as long as there is a thing that somebody is getting.
What's more amazing is that people will actually pay money for almost anything.
I sold an apostrophe on Trade Me.
Oh, look, someone's just bid $100. Oh, that's fantastic.
Whatever you're buying, it's just one of more than 1 million auctions running at peak time on what is New Zealand's biggest website.
Today, 67% of all the pages viewed on the New Zealand internet are served from Trade Me, which is just nuts.
In 1981, I was 7, but I wasn't just playing in the sandpit with my Matchbox toys. I was involved in heated debate about international politics and its ramifications on sport. Yeah, I was in the sandpit.
The Springbok Tour of 1981. an often cited watershed in New Zealand's social history.
As the game got underway, clashes erupted in many places between police and protesters.
We were fighting for the soul of New Zealand.
2, 3, 4, we don't want your racist dirt!
The arrival of a rugby team from apartheid South Africa represented the unwelcome intrusion of not just politics, but ethics and philosophy into the national game.
People who genuinely loved their rugby didn't see the politics around it. They were sort of baffled by the whole thing. They couldn't understand why they couldn't just go and watch rugby.
The first clashes came as irate rugby fans found their way to the match impeded.
New Zealand's sporting culture was suddenly under attack.
So rugby was like a religion. It was the community glue for a lot of rural communities. So to attack rugby was like attacking a religion.
Our rugby stadiums became the crucible of an international debate on human rights and justice. And we hated it.
It did nearly tear the country apart.
Smoke bombs, flares, being an attempt to come onto the field.
It sounds like a huge thing to say, but it's not an exaggeration.
But for such a defining event, the legacy of the tour is strangely absent in our pop culture today. Few songs, plays, films or novels have revisited 1981.
I think the artistic response that really matters is the response that happens at the time. But it was such a political thing that the political response outweighed it.
During the tour, the first artistic responses came from the heart of the protest movement itself, in music.
The Red Squad is waiting for us to arrive. Let's link up, move, dance to the patu jive, oh baby. We're doing the patu jive.
The punk movement, rooted in aggression and rebellion, found itself well placed to articulate the groundswell of public anger. The band Riot 111 released a single to protest the tour. Based on the haka, it was called simply 1981.
I would start with the haka. Boom, boom, on the bass. Boom, boom. Is it life?
The song charted in the top 20.
It's our song, the protesters. I mean, they used to sometimes chant it afterwards, you know, on marches.
A song, you know, a speech can get rousing, but a song moves people.
We weren't selling a political concept. We were reflecting on society.
Out of it, came some really positive things. You know, the South Africans will never forget that.
We might be very proud of our All Blacks and hobbits and mountains, but the fact is there's only one thing New Zealand means to foreigners.
You're going to New Zealand? The sheep capital of the world?
They all know the statistic, you know, there's 15, whatever it is, sheep for every person. And they genuinely think, a lot of them, that the sheep just wander, like, around the streets.
You know, you go somewhere, you go to London, they're all like, ah, you're all sheep shaggers, aren't you? And it's like, yeah.
People overseas generally do believe that we shag sheep. It's not like a joke.
But the thing is, we really do love our sheep.
They move nicely and they have a nice noise that can go in the background. And if one of them goes, you know, you go, what? Sorry, mate, what's the matter?
In Tikaweti, they recently staged a sheep run designed to rival Pamplona's running of the bulls.
Get him, mate.
And it did. We'd almost convinced the world there was more to us than sheep when this thing turned up. He was the mother of all sheep, a wild wether with the thickest coat of wool in Christendom.
And if you were to stretch these fibres end to end, they would reach right around the world.
An instant star. Shrek got FaceTime with the PM. More importantly, he went global.
As far as sheep like Shrek, I just feel sorry for it. I think that when they found it, they shouldn't have said anything and shot it.
But they never shot Shrek. For a start, he had important business on an iceberg.
Shrek, the woolly merino, was today shorn at sea, high on an icy plateau, drifting north from the Antarctic.
How could we make this iceberg better? We can fly a sheep over there and shear it.
What a stupid thing to do. Stupid, stupid thing to do. Can't believe we did it.
If Shrek taught us anything, it's that our sheep own us, not the other way round. And maybe it's worth it, just for the sheep jokes.
A man walks into the bedroom and his wife's in bed and he's got a sheep with him and he says, "This is the pig." And his wife says, "That's not a pig, it's a sheep." And he says, "I wasn't talking to you."
Why do we have women in New Zealand? Because sheep can't type.
Now, we get a bit of flack overseas for the whole sheep thing. Ah, you sheep shaggers, they say. Well, this is what I say to them. Yes, actually, we do. We shag them. And then we send them over to you. And you eat them. Ah, who's laughing now? All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you next week when we count down the top 10. See ya. Flossie. Here, boy. You still recording?
Coming up next week, it's the final countdown. You've watched this far, you'd be crazy to miss number 1.